Sam was 19 years old, and it had been a year since he started living in a different city, away from his family. The busyness of university and life in a new city had kept him occupied. However, everything changed with an anonymous letter that arrived at his house. The letter simply read, "Do you know where you got lost on January 19th, 2007? At first, Sam couldn't make sense of this letter. January 19th was his birthday, but what did 2007 mean? As he tried to recall what happened in 2007, he remembered an old birthday trip with his family. His family had mentioned several times that he got lost in the forest when he was 3 years old, but they hadn't dwelled on it much. Sam hadn't paid much attention either, leaving it as a faint memory from his childhood. This strange letter rekindled that old memory. Feeling a growing unease, he called his family. When he asked what happened that day in the forest, his family gave evasive answers again. "You were just a kid. There was nothing to be scared of," they said. But this time, Sam was after something deeper. When he brought up the letter, his mother's voice suddenly changed. There was a brief silence on the phone. Then his mother said, "We need to talk about this face to face. Please come home." After this conversation, Sam felt more uneasy than ever. He started to think his family was hiding something. He quickly got ready and set off to find answers. His mind was filled with dark memories from the past. The journey would take a while, so he chose a shortcut on the map. He thought he could reach home faster by taking a route through the forest. But this decision would drag him into a nightmare he could never have predicted. As Sam drove along the snowy road, his hands were tightly gripping the steering wheel. According to the map, this shortcut passed through a forested area. The sky had begun to darken, and the snowfall was rapidly intensifying. The short distance illuminated by the headlights seemed to disappear into the dense snowstorm. He was alone on the road, and it felt as if the world consisted only of him and the snowstorm. He glanced at the folded letter lying on the seat beside him. This letter had planted a seed of fear inside him, and as he drove down this road, that seed was sprouting and growing. He wondered why his family preferred to talk to him in person. His mind kept drifting back to his past. Why couldn't he remember that day? He knew he had gotten lost in the forest, but what had happened afterward? The snow was falling even more heavily. Sam had entered a stretch of road so dark and snowy that he could barely see ahead. His anxiety increased when he realized his phone had no signal. He occasionally glanced at the map, but the road seemed to be becoming more uncertain. Everything illuminated by the headlights blurred into a white void, as if the road would never end. Sam's thoughts kept returning to the conversations he'd had with his family. Did something happen in the forest? He wondered, what was the letter trying to tell him? He didn't remember actually getting lost that day. It was just a part of a family trip in his memory. But the letter suggested that this was no ordinary incident. Sam took a deep breath to regain his focus and decided not to speed up. The car moved slowly over the snow, but inside, he had a sense that he wasn't alone on this road. As Sam drove through the snowstorm, something caught his eye. At first, he thought it was a road sign, but as the headlights got closer, he realized it wasn't a sign but an old cabin covered in snow. The cabin was nestled among the trees, almost hidden in the heart of the forest. It was odd that it was built so close to the road. It looked small and neglected, with its windows shut and the roof weighed down by snow. As Sam stared at the cabin, questions popped into his mind. Who could be living in this cabin? Why would someone live here in this desolate forest? But these thoughts were fleeting. His mind quickly returned to the letter on the seat. The question, "Do you know where you got lost on January 19th, 2007, echoed in his ears. The memories he had dismissed for years were now haunting him. Shaking off the thought, he refocused on the road. Despite the question swirling in his head, he tried not to dwell on the cabin and continued driving. But the snowfall was growing heavier, and the road was becoming more unclear. He soon realized the road split in two. As Sam reached the junction, he was momentarily confused. Instinctively, he slowed the car to a stop. He could have sworn he'd been here before. His heart started to race. "I've been here before," he muttered to himself. When he realized he was lost, he panicked for a moment. He checked his phone, but there was still no signal. The map didn't make any sense anymore. At that moment, he felt trapped. He had stopped the car where the two roads met. Now he was wondering what to do. Should I turn back? He asked himself. The thought of going back to the cabin crossed his mind. Maybe someone living there could help him. But with that thought, a wave of unease washed over him. He thought he was alone out here, but was he really? The question echoed in his mind, sending chills down his spine. Or maybe he should just pick a road and continue. But which way was the right way? Sam clasped his hands on the steering wheel and rested his head against it. His mind was lost in a maze, searching for an answer. Which way should he go? What if something happens to me here? Who will see me? He thought. Just then, a deep silence fell, and an owl's cry pierced the stillness, high-pitched and sharp. For a moment, it was as if all of nature had gone silent. When he heard this sound, a hazy memory flashed in his mind. He remembered a story his mother had told him. When she talked about the day he was lost, she said, "When we found you, you kept looking up and pointing, saying, 'Owl, owl.'" Sam shuddered for a moment. The fact that this memory surfaced now couldn't be a coincidence. He grew tense. His eyes were on the road, but his mind was consumed by the mystery behind the letter. He was trying to make sense of what was happening, but all this uncertainty was clouding his thoughts like a thick, dark fog. Just then, Sam noticed movement in the rearview mirror. He quickly looked up. Behind the foggy glass, amidst the white snow, was a silhouette. In this darkness and heavy snowfall, someone was slowly walking toward him. Their steps were heavy, deliberate, and they were getting closer. Sam froze for a moment. His eyes widened, his breath quickened. He couldn't make out who this person was, but somehow he felt a sense of dread. Should I get out and ask for help? He thought. But just as he considered this, his instincts told him not to make a move. A wave of intense fear surged through him, paralyzing him. He couldn't bring himself to act. When he glanced at the mirror again, the figure was gone. There was no one there. The scene replayed in Sam's mind. Had that figure really been there, or was it just a trick of his imagination?
It was already too late to start the car.